I'm Renee Jayne, here to illuminate truth, health, and guide you back home to yourself. And this is a series of videos that I have on relationship and working through conflict and how to invite you and yours into a healthier dynamic in your relationships. So enjoy. If you hold on to this fear and anger and resentment in your body, it literally will eat you alive. And I'm going to pause for a minute with that one, because for me, it's life or death. And I know that sounds really serious, but it is. Because I have learned in all the 20 plus years I've been doing this work that when our physical body is impacted from years of stress, from holding on to resentment and anger, it manifests in the body as disease and illness and a lot of inflammation. And so this connection, this mind-body connection of our mental health, our emotional health, even our spiritual health, and how that impacts our physical body and vice versa, it's a holistic system. Where are you over-giving in relationships, over-functioning, like doing too much? Where are you over-being in relationships? Over-being, an example of that would be like carrying too much of other people's stuff that's not even yours to carry. Where are you under-being? Under-being would be more of an avoidant strategy. Under-giving would mean taking and taking and taking and selfishly not giving back into the relationship. And this would be in a moment of conflict that you could use that as an assessment to kind of look at where you're at. And the reality check is that you cannot give something to someone that you are not giving to yourself. So if you want to be able to show up differently in a relationship, one of your first litmus tests can be, am I giving to myself what I expect to get from this other person? If I want something from this person so badly, am I capable, am I willing, or am I currently giving that to myself? If we're judging another person, which by the way, we all do because we're humans, right? We all judge, it's part of our nature. We try not to, but we do. And if we judge another person over and over and we think so little of them for X, Y, and Z, can we look at where am I judging myself harshly? Because I can promise you, if you are harshly judging another person, that means you are probably 3 times or more judging yourself right now. And that is wearing on your body, big time. Self-criticism, probably on your thyroid, probably on your digestive system and your hormones and a whole slew of other things that leads ultimately to autoimmune. And that's another video Renee is gonna keep it reeled in, Renee. There's so much I can share with you and I'm so excited to continue to do so. But I wanna keep coming back to this idea that if we don't do some of this relationship work, it ultimately impacts our physical body. And I've seen it time and time again. Self-criticism, self-judgment, conflict in relationship literally is related to thyroid and related to autoimmune stuff that pops up. So, reminder to you, nothing is as urgent as it may seem. When you get that feeling of like, I gotta fix this, maybe you frantically found this video because you gotta like fix this right now. I gotta figure this out. He's so mad at me, or she's so mad at me, or I'm so mad at them and I don't know if I should stay or I should go. Like that's our trauma response coming in. We start seeing things as black and white and we have to like make it bad or good and right or wrong. And that's an emotional response. That's not gonna help you make a healthy decision in the moment. This is the time to step back. We're more empowered when we can understand our own mind, our own motivation, when we can understand to some degree, at least our feelings and our emotions. And we can look at, did I have unrevealed intentions in this relationship that might be needing to be investigated? Was there hidden intentions or underlying judgments or, maybe commitment issues or intimacy issues that have been revealed to me through this situation that I might need to look at. If you get clear, was your intention in this situation pure? Was it from love? If so, then there's nothing to do. And I'm not saying there might not be some conversation and things, because that's of course can happen. But just remember that like if you came from love, like genuine, even if you didn't do whatever perfectly, because who does anything perfectly? None of us are perfect. Even if you made some mistakes along the way, but you had a pure intention, then you're not wrong. And I think that's what I want to convey to as many people hearing this, because I know that a lot of people who come to this work, we either have polarized perspectives of ourselves, that either we're always right and we're like badass and we can do no wrong and we're smarter than everyone else and we're better than everyone else, or we're the opposite at times and we punish ourselves as we're bad and we're wrong and maybe I goofed up, maybe I made a mistake. And I don't think either side of those is a healthy place to be in, ultimately. Now, I'm not saying we don't have confidence and we don't know who we are, right? That's a whole different thing. But what I'm talking about is these like false illusionary aspects of ourselves as someone who's been through it. We've been through some trauma. And this is where you get to look at yourself and you get to say like, okay, maybe we're all on the same level. Maybe we're all on the same rung of the ladder. Maybe if there's no bad, right, wrong, or good, maybe if all opinions are just opinions and we're all allowed to have one, then maybe I don't need to make myself so arrogant that I think that I'm always right. Maybe I don't need to make myself so less than and unworthy that I'm always wrong. Maybe there's some kind of neutral gray area in this that I can get to. And that is the goal when we try to sit with our emotions and our feelings, is that we try to observe them. We try to notice what's going on in our body, in our physical body. And we do our best to try to get to some kind of a neutral state, because our trauma wants to make us bad or perfect. And we're none of those. We're none of those. Now, of course, I know there's not like a murderer who is like caused intentional harm to someone watching this video. I just don't believe that that's the kind of person who's going to watch this video. So I can easily say there's not an intention to be bad. And just the same, our perfectionism is one of our biggest diseases in this world. It's the disease and the addiction of our thinking, where we think we're so perfect and that everyone else is less than. And that is going to give us repetitive conflict in relationship. So I want to transition now into this next section when we are in conversation with people. And these kinds of conversations that are meant for us to work through conflict in, or to sometimes it's a one-side listening conversation. And what I mean by that is that there's a place for maybe setting a timer. That could be helpful. Boundaries are good. Like set a timer, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. And maybe it's 20 minutes. And I wouldn't do much more than that. We only have so much capacity to really listen. And that while that timer's going, the other person gets to share their experience, and the other person or people, they will just listen. And they're not allowed to say anything. They're just listening. And I want to give a few ideas around this. One is that in order to do this kind of thing, it really requires a few rules. One is that you've come to this kind of conversation and you've worked through some of the stuff that's on your side of the fence. Because it's really hard to empathically and compassionately listen to another person and their experience if you're still loaded up with all the adrenaline of your emotion. And so you really need to be able to have taken some time with yourself to like get right with you in order to hold space for another human being. And the only reason you'd want to have that kind of one side listening and then the other person, you switch and the other person shares and the other one listens. The only reason you'd want to do that is if both people have come to it and they've done some work on their own stuff. And no one's ever going to be perfect at that. But the boundary around this is that you come to it with compassion. You come to it with a bit of like calmness, I want to say. You know, it doesn't mean that you have to be like a Buddha, right? You might feel energy, you might feel a lot, but a sense of calm where you're not barking at the other person and accusing and pointing fingers. And that if that starts to happen, that you always get to say, this isn't working for me, and you get to walk and come back to it another time. Now, I wouldn't suggest just like walking away, because that, again, that's not healthy communication, but you can say, this doesn't feel calm. This doesn't feel collaborative or healthy for me, and I need to just take a beat. I need to go for a minute, and maybe we can come back to this. I'd like to hear you, but this isn't working. And it's not easy to listen to what another person has to say, but I do want to say, whatever they have to say, it's not yours to take home with you. So you can take it in. Maybe there's something for you to learn. Maybe there's things that you need to look at within yourself. But ultimately, they're allowed to have an opinion. You're allowed to have an opinion. But it doesn't make their opinion right. It also doesn't make their opinion wrong. It just makes it an opinion. And this is the biggest issue that we have. I've had it my whole life. I've learned so much around this topic. I'm so grateful for it, because now I get to share it. But I can tell you it was a hard road, because this culture does not necessarily mirror or reflect what I'm sharing with you. In our culture, if someone has an opinion we don't like, we immediately try to cancel them. That's what we do. And I say we because we all have to take responsibility for the culture we live in. But think about that. That's basically saying, if I don't like your opinion, I'm going to shut you down. I'm going to shut your voice down. And so what I'm referencing here to actually help us create more intimacy and to help us create more healthy relationships and less dysfunction, it's basically doing the opposite of what we have been trained or brought up to be doing in this culture and even in our family dynamics. And, you know, your job in any relationship is always to clean up your side of the street. And if you're over on somebody else's side of the street trying to like clean up their business, then you are in the wrong business. It's never your job to be in their business. If you don't like what they're doing with their life, it will hurt, especially if you care deeply about that person. It'll be so hard to watch them sometimes destroy their lives. It'll be so hard to watch them make choices that you might feel are detrimental, not only to you, but to others and to themselves. But sometimes that's when we have to step away and say, it's not really my business. And is this really detrimental to me if I don't allow it to be? The thing is that their criticism or their judgment or their choices or their opinions can only impact you if you allow them. One of my favorite quotes that somebody shared with me quite a few years ago that has stuck with me, and I reference it often, is that no one can bully you unless you bully yourself. So if you feel like somebody is bullying you or judging you or criticizing you, they can't actually do that to you unless you are in self-critical mode, unless you are in a major judgmental mode and you are your biggest bully. And so we need to look at this. We need to look at it and start to separate out, what is their stuff? Do I need to let go and detach? Detachment, another video probably. This is obviously packed with information, but I'm just going to tell you it's a spiritual practice. It's a practice of understanding that this is not mine to carry anymore, and that as much as I love this person, as much as I want this situation to be a certain way, I actually don't have control over it. I don't have control over it. We don't actually have control of pretty much anything in this world, if you haven't realized it yet. And so detaching means not that you don't care, because of course you care. You wouldn't even be listening to this video if you didn't care. But detaching means that you are giving it over. You're letting it go because you finally realize that trying to carry it and control it is worth so much more stress and pain than you can do. You just can't do it anymore. You have to detach. It's not yours to carry. So, okay, the next thing that I want to talk about is that proving your point in relationships. So this is part of our ego, and we're humans and we have egos, and we're not trying to destroy the ego. The ego is actually an aspect of us that keeps us like on our toes in a sense. But we don't want the ego to be driving the ship, okay? We want our higher self, our soul, and our highest level of consciousness to be driving the ship, okay? The ego is the part of us that might give us some information from time to time, but it doesn't get to be in the driver's seat. And when we're trying to prove our point, that's when our ego is driving. Hard one, because we want everyone to know our opinion, right? We want them to know this is my opinion. You need to hear it. You need to hear my opinion and you need to follow it. If you just followed my opinion, then everything would be great. We'd all be the same. No one would have any conflict. Right? Wrong. Wrong. It's not going to ever work that way. Do you really want everyone to be like you? Do you really want everyone to have an opinion just like you? Could you imagine? Could you really imagine that? No. We would all be butting heads, and maybe we're all butting heads now, but it's not because we all have different opinions. It's because we haven't learned the tools on how to have healthy intimacy with each other. That we have actually created so many distractions in our culture, and we have had so much dysfunction in the family of origin in our world that it's all coming to a head right now, right here for all of us. If you were watching this video, oh my, you were born at a time, and you were born for a reason. And your growth and your evolution will come through you evolving healthfully through relationships. Proving yourself is a manifestation of you trying to be in your I'm right mode. Looking for validation is another subtle form of that. You don't need anyone to validate you. Actually, you are here to learn how to boldly speak your truth, be in your best form of self-expression, expressing your opinions that only you get to have, and to validate yourself while you do it. You get to do that. That's why you're here. And we cannot do that, though, until we take a good, honest look at ourselves. We look in the mirror, literally look at ourselves in our own eyes, but also look in the mirror reflection of these relationships and see, where have my behaviors been? What are the words that I'm saying? What are my actions? How am I speaking to myself? If you have people who are bullying you, I guarantee you have been bullying yourself for far longer. And that's where you need to start, because you would not let someone treat you that way if you were not currently treating yourself that way. Can you grow and evolve through this? Yes, you can. I just want to remind you that you can. And if somebody is triggering you so much, then I would say it's probably because you are in a position that you are ready to individuate. You are ready to step more into your authentic self. And this person is triggering the shit out of you, for lack of a better word, and kind of uncomfortably pushing you to boldly rise. And we can be open, we can hear other people, we can honor their experience, and we want to do that. It's not wrong. You're not wrong. It just is. I say this over and over, but I think we just keep needing to hear it, that we're here to connect with ourselves. We're here to understand our soul. We're here to have a great understanding of our body and our emotions. And this is so necessary right now. It's so necessary. And this is not a kind of language that a lot of us have been accustomed to speaking. So it takes practice. For me, I had to listen to a video like this, which wasn't made, but a conglomerate of all the teachings and all the 20 years I've been doing this work over and over and over. I had to write it out and remind myself and make recordings for myself and sticky notes for myself. And I don't know, maybe you don't need to do that. Maybe you hear it once and you're good, great. That wasn't the case for me. And perhaps the other person may come to you and want to have a conversation. And if you have some notes, that's okay. I just want to remind you, you're not supposed to be perfect at anything. So if you need to reference notes and allow things to naturally come together, trust that they will. And it reminds me of the book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The Four Agreements, which is obviously a classic book. If you haven't read it, I do recommend you check that one out. And one of those four agreements is to not take anything personally. And if you're taking other people's stuff personally, that's where you start. That's where you start. If you're making assumptions about the other person, that's where you start. You look at, why are you making assumptions about them? Who are you to make assumptions about that person? Why are you taking whatever they're saying so personally? Could it be because it really hits a chord with something inside you that you don't want to look at right now? And where are you still blaming yourself? Where are you still holding guilt with yourself? Where are you blaming other people? And these are questions to journal about. These are questions to look at. And sometimes people come to me and they're like, I want to have this conversation. I'm like, okay, great. Let's talk about how to have the conversation. But before you do, get cleared up on your stuff. And this is how we do it. This is how we do it. So, one thing I want to mention, that if you notice that you are doing any of these things and you can work through it through journaling or whatnot, great. But I personally have been working with a life coach or a therapist or in groups or anything. I've been doing this kind of personal growth work for over 20 years. I've had so many incredible mentors, so many incredible coaches and therapists. I mean, I feel very fortunate, but I've also chose that. I chose that path for myself, and I'm not saying it's the only path, but I also want you to know that there's like an insidious aspect of us that can hang out in our victimhood when we feel like we're alone and that there's nobody there for us, and that there's actually always somebody there for you if you choose it. And it can be free too. There's free resources all over regarding this. I personally charge for my services as I run a business, but I'm just saying, like, none of us have to do this alone, and you're not alone. And so just remember that. Don't let your brain kind of warp you into this old illusion that you don't have anybody or that you're all by yourself, because that's just another way to stay in our old stuff, and we won't be able to get through if we stay there. I hope this was of value. If you haven't seen the entire series, I encourage you to check it out. All the links are in the section below. And if you like this video, please like this video and leave me a comment. If you have questions or anything at all that you want to share about your experience, I'd love to hear it. I'll see you soon.